This was not an investigation; it was
Right.
a fact-finding mission. But it was one of three processes to try to get to take a deeper look at what happened on New Year's night, and
Right.
you had Chief Kirkpatrick at the table, um, and the first thing that was said was, I can't really. This is not the time at this hearing to go into the details of all of the infrastructure and the barriers and the bollards and
Right.
all of that. So she didn't want to go into it. Here's what I don't understand. And then I'll go a little further. She made she took the position that she is bringing into the fold the former police chief from New York City,
Right.
um, in order to help guide her and NOPD on some of this work. Here's why I'm upset about all of this. And again, we are in the spotlight right now. This is no longer kind of a city council meeting that goes on cable television, local cable, and our residents watch it. Everything that happens right now in New Orleans is being seen across the world,
Yes.
and I don't understand how you would be holding a hearing where you didn't know that the police chief was not going to be giving answers. I mean, there has to be better coordination between the witness and the counsel on a topic like that.
Right.
Equally important, if the chief was going to bring on a new expert from outside, I understand some on the council may have known that, but not all, apparently. We can't do that. It looks dysfunctional. We've got to work in a unified way, as you and I talked about last night. Nobody's looking for gotcha moments or firing opportunities. The purpose of all of these investigations or fact findings is to find out where we are, what went wrong, how we can improve, and that our citizenry and tourists that come into town will be safe. And it just seems like, similar to 2 weeks ago when we saw that press conference, it just seems like things are political, that they're
Yes.
not all together. They're certainly a little bit fragmented in terms of, because look, if the chief was not going to come and answer real substantive questions, then what's the purpose of the hearing today?
Yeah.
Because
What
she
it
was the main witness.
witness, right? What it creates, though, Arnie, is exactly what you said, and we both have been through enough hearings, investigations, and everything in that very room. I mean, for 37 years, I went down there numerous times with very different subject matters. And the issue always was if somebody was brought to the table, they were brought to the table for a reason. And if you're going to the table and you're not going to say anything, as the way the process works, there's plenty of time before you get there to say that, I'm not prepared to speak or whatever and not show up or whatever. There's a process that you can go through to come there and basically say, I don't have anything to say, just makes it look worse. It makes it look like you're evading the question. And actually, to me, some of the things we talked about not becoming a political circus, you're creating a political circus even more so. And you're making people feel more uncomfortable that some people don't know what they're doing or whatever. And talking about some expert from out of town, basically, you've hired this person. As we both know, the hiring process through contract or whatever is pretty complicated in the city, and it doesn't seem like you can just handpick somebody. This guy's a great guy. Willie Bratton is a expert, bar none, in those fields. But it just seems like everything's just haphazardly being done, and it makes the public have less confidence.
Well, and as a result of all of the stuff that happened today, first of all, Councilmember Thomas is the chair of
Yes.
of of, of this committee. Okay, I find it ridiculous that if the police chief, and I'm not trying to be negative on Chief Kirkpatrick, I'm really not, but if she wasn't going to provide what really this
Yes.
committee was trying to seek, she should have let this committee know and let the chair
Absolutely.
know of that, and either the hearing wouldn't have been held, or it could have been postponed, or they could have moved into other areas.
Yeah.
Then when you do make a substantive announcement that you're bringing in the chief from New York, the president of the council said she had been aware of it, but she was concerned, rightfully, as to whether the council was going to have a future role in this, because there is some precedent when outsiders have been brought in that
Right.
the council was kind of shut out of the process.
Right.
That can't happen.
Right.
I mean, the council has a constitutional responsibility of oversight here.
Yes.
So, and she was, it was good to hear that the chief said that Chief Bratton will obviously engage with the council. It's not only going to be the administration. And then the third piece of it today, and this has been said, where was the Homeland Security Director for New Orleans?
Yes.
I mean, I've had Colin interviewed. I interviewed Colin Arnold. He's a good guy. I think he's
Yes.
a good leader.
Yes.
But this is a situation that occurred in the city of New Orleans. I mean, the Homeland Security Director has to be able to weigh in on all of this. He is a vital part of the fact finding and also the future resolution, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing, we both know Colin well. I mean, and he's very good at his job as well. The issue there is, because of all of what's going on, because we become this tier one event for everything going forward, and he is our Homeland Security Director. The simple fact that he may be deeply involved with the FBI or whoever right now, all these things about setting up this hearing to have it be something that was worthy of the public's needs. It begs the question: was that the issue, or was he not told not to go, or whatever? I mean, it just makes everything make the public more uncomfortable about people having their hands on the tiller. I just believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're raising a really good point. I mean, as I understand, the objective of today's hearing, even more so than the future hearings that are going to occur, because again, let's remember this was one hearing. There's a joint process between the state, led by Liz Murrill, the Attorney General, that the council is going to support, and then there's a third investigative procedure that the council is going to undertake. Today was more about giving the public confidence that at least going forward, for Super Bowl, for Mardi Gras, that things are going to be better and that everybody's safe. And I just think when you put it all together, one person not showing, one person not willing to speak, I think at the end of the day, you kind of scratch your head as a citizen and say, this gives me no more comfort than what I had walking in this morning.
Yes, and also one thing I'll say as well, which is kind of a timing issue, is we both know things move really rapidly, and sometimes you try and get in front of them or whatever, but this has not been that long a period of time since all of this happened as well. So there's also that piece of, are you stepping out there a little bit early with your hearing, because maybe people aren't ready to talk, or maybe they haven't even done their own internal estimation. So I mean, there just seems to be a lot of things that weren't ready today, and like I keep saying, it just makes the public. We've both been through this. When you go out in front of the public, especially with something like this, where they'll run pieces of these hearings on national television, even at this point, where you go out there and things aren't right, it just makes things much worse.
Worse. And that, again, that point is worth repeating. This is not typical city council, Arnie Filko grilling Cary Grant on local cable access. Okay.
When I started, Arnie, it wasn't even televised. It was radio. Then it became televised.
And by the way, footnote, I never really railed against Cary Grant, but it was always fun to at least play with you. But right now it's I mean every MSNBC, CNN,
it's very
Fox
easy
News,
to take this and make
outlets around the world are looking at New Orleans, and when there is a story and covering it. And I think today kind of the story was we weren't really very together as our leadership.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's much easier now for the content to be. You see it on channel 4, 6, and 8. they just take it off of the feed and they put it on television. It's that quality. So yeah, MSNBC, CNN, anybody can put it on television now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think you have to be very careful about how you use that mechanism. We're going to
Yep.
take a short
All right.
break now.
All right. Give us a call, 504-582-9422, and we'll come back on the other side, and shortly we'll be joined by Kiki Barnes.
Late nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK 1230 a.m. and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
WBOK 1230 AM online at WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Carrie Show with Arnie Philco and Carrie Grant.
And we are back.
All right. Back with you here. And we will be joined shortly by Kiki Barnes. Carrie, maybe you can let me know when she comes on.
Yeah, I will.
So just to kind of finish out the discussion, I think it's really important going forward here that we really stay unified. Our federal, our state, our local officials. I mean, really not only the citizens, but the rest of the country, the world is looking at us. And we gotta come to some conclusions on how we improve the situation, let it never happen again. We had some news today that the explosives that this terrorist was using were pretty serious things that had these two IEDs been detonated. I mean, we could have had hundreds and hundreds of people's lives lost. So, the more we learn about what happened, what the motive was, I think one of the things we learned, Terry, is that this guy Jabbar, he definitely pinpointed New Orleans. I mean, he had been here twice on reconnaissance. He had been using these meta glasses to kind of record on Bourbon Street.
Yeah, Arnie, we're losing your signal a little bit. I don't know if you need to call in again or what.
Okay, let me call back, Carrie.
It's better now. Yes, clear.
Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, whatever you're doing, it's working now.
Okay, good. All right, I'll stay with you.
So what you're saying is very true. And I think one thing we have to think about too, and I saw this from Councilmember Morrell, a lot of this federal aid and everything that we're getting coming up for all these events, there's a lot of federal oversight that comes with that too. And he made some good points about some of the issues about Mardi Gras and its quirkiness and its uniqueness and those type of things and the decision-making process. But what I'm driving at, Arnie, is what you said about working together with all our partners, federal, local, and state, to make sure that these things are helps and not hindrances, and we don't get bogged down in a lot of political infighting or whatever about I'm in charge of parades or, Zulu has to go this way or where. We need to make sure we're all on the same page so that aid and support can really help us to be safe, but at the same time, make sure everybody knows their role and that we can all work together and make decisions together.
You're so right. I thought JP's comments were right on that.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's a big win that we got this designation. Yeah. At the top level of security, but at least when it comes to Mardi Gras, let's be honest. New Orleans Mardi Gras is unique. There's
yes.
not other events in New York and Chicago and other places, that compare with this, because we have, millions of people coming into town. We have thousands of people on the street. You can't do what they do in New York on New Year's Eve.
Right.
You can't shut off an
Right.
entire neighborhood.
Right.
So, I think his message was, nice to have all of this, but let's hope that it doesn't really destroy the real fabric of what we're used to here in New Orleans with Mardi Gras.
Sure. I mean, from a security point of view, I mean, from an outsider security point of view, I mean, Mardi Gras is the most vulnerable target in the world, having that many people standing on the street, in huge crowds, moving back and forth and everything. And, that we can handle these things, and we don't want it to become a thing where you can't get to the parade or whatever. And I don't think it would become that. But I'm just very concerned, as you are, about people making this into political fiefdom wars that aren't even existent, but just will cause confusion. And we don't need that. We really don't need that.
And
I
Karen,
think
the other
everybody
thing
wants to work this out.
I don't want us to lose sight of is, look, up until 2 weeks ago, New Orleans was considered to have the best crowd management system in the world.
Yes.
I mean, we had successfully navigated Mardi Gras and Bourbon streets and millions of tourists. I mean, we were really looked upon as, not only in the United States but around the world, as really the experts on crowd management and handling. Let's not lose sight of the fact that hasn't changed. We are dealing tonight and over the last 2 weeks with a terrorist act.
Yes.
Okay. And, as much as we're getting to the bottom of it, want to investigate, how could we have done better, all which is good. It's all appropriate.
Right.
The reality is, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact, this was a man who came to our city with the desire to kill human beings. And if it wasn't on Bourbon Street, it could have been on Claiborne, it could have been on Elysian Fields, it could have been anywhere in our city, because that was his goal. And as much as we want to say we want to be safe in our country and our city, there are just certain situations that you're never going to be 100% safe, when you have an individual with that kind of motivation.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely correct about that. The issues we have to look at are what you said. I mean, we've handled all these events. This was an anomaly. We live in a different age, but this was that type of thing that was plotted and planned issue of terrorist act, that type of thing. But we have to look at it from another practical point of view. And I'll give another example, which is very different, but it'll tell you something about what you're saying. We have a relatively small airport, but we handle millions of passengers a year, come into the city all year long for weddings, for whatever, for Mardi Gras and whatever. And we have our TSA handles those people pretty efficiently. We don't hear some of the big crises that they have at some of the larger airports. We know we don't have as much traffic as they have, but just the idea that we process as many people as we do, we are capable of a lot of things. And like you said, we can't lose sight of what we've all put together so far, because something has happened.
No, that's right. I mean, it's
Arnie, we have
unfortunate
our caller. She's on the line.
Oh, great. Kiki's with us?
Yes. Hello?
Kiki, how are you?
Hey, how are y'all?
We're doing great. Hello.
We're good. How does it feel to come back? You were a former host on WBOK. Welcome back.
It feels good to be back on. I really enjoyed my time when the best producer ever, Jazz, answered that phone. I was like, "It's me."
The Jazz man.
You had Jazz as your producer too, huh?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yes, he is.
He is great. We are very fortunate to have him as part of our show here. Well, how are things going? I know you had a big event last night. You had a virtual launch of your new book. So tell us a little bit about the book and everything that was involved last night.
Thank y'all so much. Thanks, Arnie. Thanks, Carrie, for this invitation. We did launch my very first book last night,
Great.
Blazing Your Own Trail. I told the audience last night that I have been working on this book for 7 years.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. It's like I'll start and then I'll get sidetracked with something else, and then I'll go back at the beginning of the new year and okay, I'm focused on the book, and then I'll get sidetracked again. But this past year, I was invited to be the commencement speaker at my alma mater, which is University of New Orleans. And there was this, I would like, for me as a spiritual person, I said, the Spirit said, write the book now. Like, this is the time. You can't put it off any longer. And so I got really serious. I got focused and found a publisher to work with. And here we are finally with a finished product that I'm pretty proud of, excited to hear about, what feedback I will get.
Yeah.
That kind of gives a little snippet into my personal journey to leadership. I am a native of Minden, Louisiana, and for those who are listening, if you haven't been, if you didn't have to learn all the parish and parish seats in Louisiana history in elementary or middle school, Minden is up in the northwest corner in Webster Parish. We're the parish seat there, and that's where I grew up and learned a lot and started playing sports, and that kind of led to me eventually getting a scholarship to college and coming down to the University of New Orleans. And so there were a number of things that I learned during that time that have been very helpful to me developing leadership qualities now that I've utilized in my career. And so this book is I would say, almost the origin story, kind of how did I get here, and really excited about what I believe are great lessons for people who are, looking to transition maybe, or just not understanding how to deal with transition when it happens. I think there are some great lessons for anyone. It doesn't matter your age, about handling life's transitions and,
Yes.
to help you get to success.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the cover right now, Blazing Your Own Trail, Faith, Focus, and Forward Momentum in Leadership by Kiki Baker Barnes, PhD. So talk a little bit about the faith aspect
Yes.
of your journey and what the book, entails relative to faith and religion.
Yeah, so I will say, I introduce in the book what I like to call is the blind exchange framework. And the framework is centered around a failure that happened when I was in high school. I played basketball, and a lot of people know that, but I also ran track. And so when I was a senior, we had the very first event was the 4x200 meter relay. Mm-hmm. And I was the anchor of that team. Wow. And we were poised based on the time that we were seeded with to be one of the top 3 teams. And we had been trying to do that for years. So, we're lining up, we're getting ready. My teammate is bringing the baton to me. I turn around to take the baton from her. I drop the baton. We lose. And there are a ton of lessons around this particular moment with me turning around to get the baton. When you run sprints in track, you usually do what they call is a blind exchange, which means that you don't look back. You're supposed to you have ways of communicating with one another to know when to signal for me to put my hand back and when she's going to give me the baton. And so I use that somewhat as a metaphor to develop this framework about what does faith really look like when you're walking a path that's unknown, or maybe there are other people who just don't understand what you're trying to do. And so you think you're going to someone that you think has experience, and then you talk to them and you don't get what you need to help you figure out what decision to make, what route you want to take. And so I utilize that story to kind of create what I call as a framework that talks about how you develop your faith when you are moving when you're trying to accomplish something maybe that no one has done, at least maybe that you've seen that no one has done. And so that's, I love sports. I feel like you can learn so much about sports and life utilizing sport analogies. And so the blind exchange framework is anchored, of course, in faith. And then the other two elements of the blind exchange framework are focus and forward momentum, which I get into with other stories as it rolls along in the book. But I mean, I can say that those are the three fundamental elements to anyone who's been successful. If you sit down and you talk with someone who's done a good job or they've achieved something in their life, those three words at some point are going to come out of their mouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kiki, I just have to tell you, I've never talked to you about this. You're a good friend, but I was a halfway track athlete in high school. I'm saying halfway because
Really?
I didn't really do what I should have done, but maybe I lost my focus. But I was actually on our relay team, and we used to practice more passing the baton than running. So
So you get it.
because it was exactly what you said. And when I'm watching the Olympics or whatever, and I see somebody don't have a good handoff or drop the baton, that always makes me remember how much we focused on that blind exchange. That literally you're looking forward because you're trying to run and you're trying to catch this thing with your hand. It's like it was really something. It's about faith. It's about I have to rely on the person behind me and I have to do my part. Yeah. So you're very right about using that as a metaphor. And I want to ask you about your experience when you did that, when you had your drop. What happened with that afterward? I mean, how did you react? I know it made you a stronger person, but how did your team react, and how did that change your life? Because I'm sure it did.
It really did, and I don't want to give too much away in the book because I talk about a lot of the lessons. But I think it's fair to say this is, I would say this is in the atmosphere. I had 3 more events that day. I went and won a state championship in the triple jump.
There you go.
and I talk about all the things that go in line with getting up after you drop the baton. But, what I'll say is, you can't dwell on mistakes.
Right.
It's all a part of the process. And you have to refocus, which is a part of it, and you got to move forward, which is the other part of the element. And so I did what I needed to do, and I got me a ring.
That's great. Great.
Kiki, I want to talk to you about the work you do with young people, but just for those that may not know you, I mean, obviously we know you, and I think a lot of New Orleanians know of Kiki Barnes, but just talk a little bit about your career, how you got into sport. I know you were both on the coaching side and the administrative side. So give us a little bit of thumbnail sketch of your own career.
Yeah, well, again, hello again to the audience. Really appreciate you all tuning in and listening. As you just heard, I'm from Minden, Louisiana. Got a scholarship to come to the University of New Orleans to play basketball. Ran track there, and when I graduated from UNO, I got an offer to be a graduate assistant at University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And that's what started my career in sports altogether. I coached there for a couple of years as a GA, and then eventually got a full-time job at Southern University at Baton Rouge, which was, that was my first full-time job. I was high cotton. You couldn't tell me I wasn't somebody now that I was full-time. Such an exciting time. I was only there for a year, though, because the coach who was there was in his last year of his contract. So I left there after a year and took my first head coaching job at Southern University at Shreveport. And eventually, a few years later, worked my way back, came back to University of New Orleans to start a PhD program, and landed at Dillard University with Robin Martin, who was the athletic director at that time. That was 2004, 2005, and then Katrina hit. So we all know what that was like. I had evacuated up to Minden, wound up losing my job because, nobody had a semester. It was, of course, as we know, that was such an awful time for all of us who were here in New Orleans at that time. So I wound up coming back as a full-time student at UNO, and Robin took another job, and Dillard hired me in 2006 as their athletic director. And so I spent the last, from 2006 to I left Dillard in 2022, so I think 16, 17 years at Dillard as the athletic director and head women's basketball coach, and took on a new role as commissioner of the HBCU Athletic Conference, which Dillard and Southern University of New Orleans are both members. So it's been a very interesting ride. I often tell people that this was not the career that I chose for myself. I thought I was going to be on the communications side and host a show like Oprah. But it has been a very rewarding and fulfilling career.
Well, you have done an amazing job. I think I first met you back when you were coach, right right at the time near Katrina, and of course you and I stayed in touch over the years and such. One of the things that I really admire about your career and your heart and your work is I know you work very hard to try to provide opportunities for young women that may be interested in sports as a career to get into the industry. Talk about that, because as you know, I have a similar program, not exactly the same as yours, but giving these kids opportunities and giving them the foundation to get into the sports industry is really important. So tell us a little bit about that area.
Yeah, so in 2018, I started a program called So You Want a Career in Athletics, and as Arnie has shared, it was aimed at helping young girls get exposure to careers in sport. It initially started out as just a collaborative event that I would do in collaboration with National Girl and Women in Sports Day, which is usually the first Wednesday, I think, of every February. So I did a couple of those, and at the time I was on a college campus, so working with young ladies who were on college campuses, and we were working with local schools, trying to get kids to come to the campus just to talk a little bit about, what kind of opportunities exist. I invited friends that friends and colleagues that I had developed relationships with throughout the industry, and I'd have them come in town, and they would come and pour into the young people. And so I remember this point where I said, I was like, I want to do more than just an event. Like, I don't want it to be just a one-day thing where people come and get inspired and then they leave. Like, it's got to be a little bit more. Maybe I can eventually do an academy. So right before COVID, we were planning what I like to call as a festival in collaboration with the Final Four committee, because we were supposed to host the women's Final Four that year. But of course, COVID cut all that stuff out. And so I went to doing virtual webinars, which allowed me to really expand the programming in a way that I hadn't really thought about initially. And so I did like a summer series interviewing different women in sports on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, saying, hey, meet this person. Here's what they do. And that went really successful. And it went so well that I was able to host an academy that following summer, which was really fun. It was a 3-day immersive experience. Young ladies, we had, I think, 12 young ladies that were a part of that cohort group, and it was amazing. Now, here's the deal. I took this commissioner job, and it became a little bit more intense. The demands on my time has been a lot more, and so I haven't done as much in the last year or so. But I'm hoping that with getting this book off the ground, I'm hoping that that'll help me get some of the mentoring stuff that I wanted to do. Being able to kind of travel a little bit and see people with the book allows me to talk to young women about careers. And so I'm hoping that that'll help me get that back kind of off the ground. But It's definitely been an interesting journey. I love young people. I love people. I mean, I just think in general, but especially young people, and finding a way to help them see the light gives me life, honestly.
Kiki.
And so I've been really grateful and fortunate to have that opportunity to do this kind of work.
Yeah, Kiki, one thing I want you to just talk about that program, because I was going to ask about that as well. Talk about what you mean by jobs in sports. Just what kinds of jobs? Because
Yeah.
there's lots of things in sports that are not the guy who's on the court or girl who's on the court. You know.
That's a good point, Gary. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point.
Absolutely. So I think I'll break it down by department. So
Sure.
you have your executive or administrative team. And your executive and administrative team can be from everyone from an athletic director, a commissioner, in professional sports, a general manager.
Yeah.
I, you have your chief financial officer. So the people who, if you like money and you love numbers, you know, we depend heavily on people who can understand the numbers.
Right.
So, you know, you've got the money people. You've got HR, human resources. Like if you're interested in helping build teams and, you know, making teams work successfully, every one of our organizations, professional sports, college sports, even maybe in high schools, like there's HR, there are HR opportunities and people development roles. There's marketing. So in the marketing space, you've got PR, you've got video, you've got digital, photography, you've got sports information. Those are the people who do stats and what do you want to call it? They are actually writing the history books for stats. You know, if you need something and you want to know about something that happened, then the sports information people are the people who do that, and they are amazing. And with the way that the world has transitioned, there's technology attached to all of these roles. So data analytics is kind of this new and business intelligence. Like if you're in the computers and you're writing code, I mean, everybody's trying to sell a platform or a software platform to help us be more efficient at the work that we're doing.
Right.
The latest software hack I'm trying to think of that was so cool, they were putting these trackers in basketball on either attached to the shoe or in a shoe for players, where it's tracking their efficiency, like where they're taking shots from, like
right.
Incredible, right? Those are people who like to do data science. Like, you don't even have to touch a court necessarily. You could just create programs that help people make better decisions. And then, of course, there's coaching, you know, and all of the people that go along with that. But golly, there's just so much to do.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, and I say this all the time about kids particularly, is, you know, a lot of times they don't realize how much you can do and still be close to something that you love or that you want to be part of. And that's the issue, is to show them that there's much more to this than just the thing you see in front of the TV screen or in front of whatever. Like you said, even this data issue is something new, a field that kids love, dealing with computers and programming and that type of thing. So there's a whole aspect in sports that is the very thing that they love to do. So we need to make sure that our young people see that there's more venues and more avenues for their futures than they may think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, Kerry, that the impetus, that was the other impetus for me starting the program.
Mm-hmm.
It was appalling to me after I reflected on the fact that I spent from 6th grade maybe all the way to graduate from college around sport.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated, I wasn't even thinking about working in sports. Now I love sports.
Right.
I loved playing it. I loved watching the games, but I had never even considered a career in it.
Wow.
And I said, wow, how could I have been this immersed but so distant?
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, and it's changing, Kiki, as you know, that in your repair role. It's literally changing in front of our eyes. I mean, as things like the NIL and the new settlement, the House case. I mean, now schools are going to start hiring basically salary cap managers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like you have
That's
in the
right.
NFL and the NBA. So, the jobs that are coming are really exciting. And, I think the point you raise is important that, if you play sports, if you love sports, think of it as a career, because you and I have been greatly blessed to have had a long career in this great industry. And, it's fun, it's innovative, and, and there's opportunities. And I do want to say one more thing. A mutual friend that you and I have, Rich Lapchak, Dr. Lapchak, has spent a lot of his life trying to help minority young boys and girls, men and women, get into the sports industry. The racial report card that you see in the NFL and things of that nature. And we are, I'd like your thoughts on this, but at least from my perspective, it seems like there are much more opportunities being developed, for younger African American, men and women to get in.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely and there's definitely a lot of opportunities. We just have to be made aware of them.
Right. That's true.
Some of the revenue pressures that, Division I schools are facing now with paying athletes and things like that, how does that translate down the road to your conference?
Oh, I had a conversation. I did an interview earlier today with a young lady who is doing research on the impact of NIL. And one of the things I said to her, honestly, Arnie, that's not our battle. The students who choose to come to our institutions are not interested in monetizing, and they're not interested in doing sport for money. And I know that not in a way that it's being positioned, if that makes any sense. I have, as of now, as far as I know, I don't have any school that has an NIL collective where they're having conversations about, okay, we've got to pay these kids. Because NIL has to be funded. That's one of the things I've tried to help people understand. It's not, if you are at an institution that has a corporate program in place where they are able to profit some and they have some people with the resources to fund it, then that works. But a lot of our schools aren't in that position. I would say that our struggle and where we're still trying to figure out is how to create a better business model for small college athletics.
Yeah.
And how do we monetize in a way that at some point there will be enough profit for our institutions to get a check back from their conference as well as maybe fund a collective. The schools that have this opportunity right now already have that excess. They have the model in place where that I would say is what has caused what we're looking at. Coaches with million, trillion. People are like, well, you get it. Yeah.
So, Kiki, we're going to run out of time here, but how do people get your book?
Yes.
How that is out?
Everybody, you can go to my website, www.kikibakerbarnes.com, and I spell my name KIKIBakerBarnes.com. You'll see at the top, click on book, and when you click on book, it'll take you to the page to buy. It is available on Amazon. You can search my name on Amazon as well. If you don't go to my site, you can put Kiki Baker Barnes in the Amazon search bar, and boop, Lazy Show will show up.
Well, thank you very much.
WBLK listeners, go and get this book. It is going to be a great read for you. Kiki, love you. You are the best. We're going to see you somewhere down the road, we're going to see an announcement. Kiki Baker Barnes, NBA commissioner, WNBA commissioner. I don't know which one yet, but it's coming, my friend.
She can do both. This was great, Kiki.
She can do both.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
New Orleans, have a great evening. Thank you, Kiki, for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow night, 6 to 7 p.m. Love to have you join us. Have a great evening, New Orleans.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Arnie. Thanks, Carrie.
Hi, I'm Leo Jackson, host of Sunday Gospel here every Sunday morning, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 12 o'clock till 2 p.m. You don't want to miss this move of God. It happens only on WBOK. You listen to all day long.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com. Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Sunday mornings are reserved for a good word on WBOK. This Sunday, be sure to catch Dr. Kevin Stevens Sr., the pastor of Christian Unity Church, for service and a powerful, full, inspiring word. Listen live every Sunday morning right here on WBOK.
Hi, this is Arnie Filko. Let's elevate every Tuesday through Thursday from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. as we discuss the community, the country, and the world, from politics to current events to sports. We look forward to your input and continuing the quality programming on your community station, WBOK. Join Carrie and I every Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. on Elevated Conversations, the Arnie and Carrie Show. See you soon.
I'm Wendell Pierce. Thanks for making WBOK your station. WBOK, 1230 a.m.
From the campus of Xavier University.
Yeah.
WBOK, 1230 a.m.
Go.
An Equity Media Station.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Wildfires in Southern California have killed 2 people, injured several, and destroyed over 1,000 structures. The Palisades Fire near Malibu and the Eaton Fire near Pasadena have each burned over 10,000 acres. The Hearst Fire has scorched 500 acres north of San Fernando. President-elect Trump has asked the Supreme Court to pause his New York hush money case before sentencing on Friday. He was convicted of 34 counts of falsifying business records related to payments to Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Maryland's 2025 General Assembly kicked off today in Annapolis. Black Governor Wes Moore is prioritizing addressing a $3 billion deficit with his budget proposal coming next week. And Vice President Kamala Harris honored former President Jimmy Carter at a Capitol memorial, praising his Egypt-Israel peace efforts and his post-presidential legacy, including the Carter Center's global human rights and public health work. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
In our second hour today, nutritionist and author Maya Feller on her favorite soulful holiday recipes. Her book is titled Eating from Our Roots, 80 plus healthy home-cooked favorites from cultures around the world. We'll talk to Maya in our second hour. In our third hour, is STEM education failing people and children of color in particular? If so, how can schools create a culturally relevant curriculum for STEM education? And are there fun science, tech, engineering, and or math projects you can do with your children while they're home during the holidays? We'll talk about it in hour 3 with former NASA